My low point started almost immediately. By the time I was 15, I was a full-blown drug addict. Me and a group of friends of mine stole an automobile, got into an accident, and took the lives of 2 young women. It's very difficult to explain what it's like to take somebody's life. One of my friends that was in the car with me wound up committing suicide over it because he couldn't deal with it. And I often thought of how I could make amends, and I could never really come up with an answer. So the addiction basically was my way of coping, but I know what addiction can do, and I know how many lives it can destroy other than yourself. I mean, just a few short months ago, I was hiding in my apartment with the drapes down, drinking myself literally to death. Literally drinking myself to death. My addiction for me was just a slow form of suicide. But there are a lot of things I think that addiction takes away from people, and that is the ability to grow mentally and emotionally. And although I'm 45 years old and I've experienced a lot more between that time and here, and that I've matured, you know, I'm still locked in a mental place of 15 years old. I'm still locked in the fact of leaving the scene, carrying my friend, his blood all over me, getting arrested, seeing my father cry for the first time, going back to high school, being ridiculed. Because I have no memory of being 9. I have no memory of being 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I remember one incident at the age of 15. So when I got out of rehab this time, I decided that I would go to the graves. And I went to one, and I couldn't explain what I felt, what I was thinking. It was odd to look at a gravestone and know that I put that person there. And it's funny how things work. I don't know if anybody believes it. I mean, I struggle with God and a higher power and all that other stuff. But if there is a higher power or there is a God, there was no coincidence that this young lady was buried maybe 100 yards from my brother. And I had been to my brother's grave hundreds of times and never even knew she was there, you know? And, you know, I think it's very important for people that recover to make amends, however possible. You know, I'm learning to confront that part of my life. I think about them quite often. And, you know, a lot of people speak about, you know, your life has a purpose, you know. And, you know, maybe my purpose is to sit here across from you and tell this story. But then there's the flip side to it, that, you know, if everybody's life has a purpose, are you telling me that their life didn't have a purpose? I know their names, I know where they're from, and I think about them, and I think about the possibilities of what their lives might have been. So it's kind of a confusing thing for me, you know, and if there is a God, and I did have an experience. I went and spoke at a meeting one time, and there was about 300 people there. And this is the first time I recovered. And after I was done, a guy walked up to me and he said, you know, he said, my older brother was dating one of the girls that you killed at the time. And naturally, I just ran white. But he said to me, if it means anything to you, I forgive you. And I never saw that man again. You know, if there's any God on earth, or God in heaven, or whatever you want to call it, maybe that was God's way of giving me a verbal, you know, hey kid, don't worry about it, we'll fix it in the end, you know? And I felt good for a little bit after that, but I was still troubled by it. You know, even to this day, I'm troubled by it. Even to have to sit here and say that that's part of my story, you know? I think what my story can do for somebody is that no matter what you've been through, recovery is possible. It is possible, no matter what you did. It's like anything else in life. You know, it's like when you break a leg, it hurts like hell, right? You break a bone, it hurts. But in time, it doesn't hurt anymore. You know, and eventually this will not hurt as much as it does. And when I'm sober, it doesn't hurt as much as it does. But when I'm actively using, it's right there, you know, and I just drink to mask it. But I wake up the same day and I'm still that same guy that got behind the wheel of that car, stole that car, and took those lives. No matter how much I drink, that'll never go away. No matter how much I use drugs, that'll never go away. Ever. Just won't. Yeah, I guess I could look at it as a dumb kid and, whatever, but it still is what it is. Whether I was a dumb kid or not, it still is what it is. And there's no excuse that's going to make it feel better. It's now come a time when you just have to learn to live with it. You got to be able to walk hand in hand with your demons, because if you don't, you're going to lose. And yes, I do daydream about a lot of different things, just like everybody else, But, it is what it is. But you can recover. You can stop one day at a time. Literally one day at a time. Sometimes a minute at a time, an hour at a time, whatever it takes. And, statistically, I will drink again. I'm just not drinking today. Today's all I got.